Payday, payday. You want payday? I know that. Canelo. Why wouldn't you just fight David Benavidez?
A source said that Haymon would have given Alvarez the guarantee in the agreement to fight Charlo if he also agreed to a September fight with David Benavidez. The unbeaten WBC interim super middleweight titleist and one of his mandatory challengers, who many believe would be his toughest test and a huge fight commercially.
Wow.
The unbeaten WBC interim super middleweight titleist and one of his mandatory challengers.
The interim super middleweight champion, David Benavidez, and
A source said that Haymon would have given Alvarez the guarantee in.
A source said Haymon was going to give Canelo Alvarez the guarantee to fight Charlo if he was also willing to
A source said that
to David Benavidez. Say it ain't so. Listen again.
A source said that Haymon would have given Alvarez the guarantee in the agreement to fight Charlo if he also agreed to a September fight with David Benavidez. The unbeaten WBC interim super middleweight titleist and one of his mandatory challengers, who many believe would be his toughest test and a huge fight commercially. Benavidez promoter Samson Lukovic told Fight Freaks Unite last week that the offer made to Alvarez was for $55 million. Other sources said the same thing, but Alvarez manager's trainer Eddie Reynoso has said publicly there was no such offer. Complicating the prospect of a September fight with Benavidez was that, according to one of the sources, he was surprisingly not one of the opponents specified in Alvarez's 3-fight PBC agreement. Alvarez, according to a source, was not interested in amending his money for May 4th and facing an opponent not part of the original agreement.
Canelo say it ain't so. Listen, so let me recap what just went on. I will put the link in the description. Dan Raphael, who's a boxing reporter, he has a source, and this article was pinned. And basically what it's saying is that Canelo Alvarez could have fought Jermall Charlo for the guaranteed money if he was willing to commit to fight David Benavidez, the Mexican monster. You know, Mike Tyson coined that. Hey, you know, David Benavidez, he's a Mexican monster. I want to see Canelo. I want to, like when I was fighting Peter McNeely, I want to see the Mexican monster. Yeah, that's what I want, right? Mike Tyson coined him that, and it's stuck ever since. So this report, the sources are saying that Al Haymon in PBC would have given Canelo that particular amount of money to fight Jermall Charlo, despite knowing the fact that people don't really want to see the Jermall Charlo fight. But it was contingent on him, if he gets past Jermall Charlo, lining it up with David Benavidez to conclude his 3-fight deal. And according to other reports, Canelo has used this as a loophole and is definitely considered leaving, going back to Eddie Hearn, Rematch Room Promotions, and DAZN because he didn't get his way, you know? And it is so painstakingly obvious at this point that Canelo, if he doesn't fight Benavidez next, he really wants no smoke. Now, I've seen some foolishness online, and I got to talk about the foolishness I see online. You have Eddie Hearn, who's, I don't really know his involvement with the Devin Haney. I think they kind of just brought him along, but he's not the lead promoter. It's Golden Boy. But whatever. He was there, and, you know, the media asked him questions or whatnot. And right now, Canelo Alvarez is trying to decide his next move for the quote-unquote Mexican date Cinco de Mayo weekend in May, the first week of May. And Eddie Hearn is basically throwing this out there that Canelo in the future could fight David Benavidez, but on the DAZN platform. Now, I'm not the smartest brother in the world, but you guys let me know, what sense does that even make for this whole situation. Like, why would Canelo do a three fight pact with Al Heyman and PBC, and they want the PBC wants the fight with Canelo and Benavidez? Why wouldn't they? It's the biggest fight in boxing, right? And you leave them, right? So the rumor is, as it sits right now, that Canelo could leave the PBC and use this like, hey, we discussed Jermall Charlo for a set amount of money, and I'm not committing to Benavidez, so that's, you're not honoring your contract, so they're mutually agreeing to separate, right? Or somebody's playing hardball. But why would you go to PBC if you really wanted to fight David Benavidez and not commit to that plan if your plan was to actually fight David Benavidez? Makes no sense at all. Why would you go there, leave there, and then summons David Benavidez, an Al Heyman PBC fighter who's working with Samson Lukowicz, to another platform? So for me, Canelo is full of tricks. He's made his money. He's made his coin. And now he's not looking to take the risk. He's not looking, he's adverse to taking this type of risk. David Benavidez is the Mexican monster, and we got to file this as a duck. This is a duck. If it looked like a duck, quack like a duck, got to be a duck, right? The world knows the biggest fight for Canelo, and really in world boxing. People can lie and say it's this fight or that fight or Joshua Ngannou. I haven't even really heard many people talking about Joshua Ngannou, to be fair. If Canelo were to fight David Benavidez, it would be massive. You easily put that in Vegas, a tourist capital, and you make a lot of money. In fact, everybody involved would make a lot of money. So this looks sad from Canelo. Not surprising. Canelo does this. And the funny thing is Canelo hasn't officially announced. The only reason that I'm not going berserker barrage on Canelo Alvarez is just because he hasn't confirmed any of it. So everything's kind of in the air, if you will. He's trying to structure and work out his next deal. But you see the problem. The common denominator is always Eddie Reynoso and Canelo. Point blank, period. First, they say they want to fight against the best. Canelo, in one of his post-fight, he says, Jim Gray asked him, who do you want to fight next? He said, I don't care. I fight anybody. I don't effing care, right? He said he didn't care. But then now PBC is explaining why the fight with Jermall Charlo is not lucrative. You fought his twin brother. It was really abysmal everything. Like, the fight wasn't good. They were acting like friends, so the buildup really wasn't good. Like, we as fans expected Jermall Charlo to be the usual Charlo. Like, yeah, keep running your mouth, like turned up Charlo. But he was unusually and uncharacteristically cordial to Canelo Alvarez. So you didn't get any spicy moments like when Caleb Plant pushed, or like, I think Canelo pushed Caleb Plant and then Caleb Plant walked back up and like swatted at him and Canelo mushed him and broke his glasses in his eye. You didn't have these types of moments when it was with Charlo. So from the buildup to the actual fight, it wasn't a great event, right? It didn't even do better number-wise than the Caleb Plant fight for Canelo. So why would PBC, even if this was previously discussed, why would they want to pay you $35 million guaranteed for a fight that's destitute to actually fail? And that's Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo has his own problems, his own demons. He has one fight in about 3 years. And that one fight, he missed weight. In that one fight, he himself was kind of uncharacteristically calm. And Jose Benavidez was like, leading the spicy trash talk, if you will. That's not how Charlo really conducted himself before, so no one wants to see that. And I've always said this, and you got to listen up in case you haven't watched some of my old content. And if you haven't, then you need to hit the subscribe button. the Charlo fight becomes increasingly difficult to sell given the fact that he's a twin. He has an identical twin brother, Jermell Charlo, who Canelo just fought, and they look the same. So Canelo, his base carries a lot of casual fans. They want to argue, but they can only argue on behalf of Canelo Alvarez because they don't know a lot of other players and boxers in the sport of boxing. They want Canelo to be lit, so that's all it's about, period, right? So with Canelo Alvarez having such a casual fan base, then how do you sell Guy B that looks just like Guy A that was a fight that people didn't really enjoy? It'll look like this to them. And I know people who are boxing fans who watch all the time, they still can't tell the difference between Jermell and Jermall Charlo to this day. And they watch boxing, just as much as me or just a little bit less. And they still don't know which Charlo said what and which Charlo fought what. So it's a terrible sell. Now we find out that Al Haymon and PBC, they were willing to work with Canelo and say, hey, fight Charlo if you're insistent on that. We'll give you the money to fight Charlo, but just commit to the Benavidez fight for your last and final fight with PBC. He wouldn't do it. So he'd rather potentially step than fight Benavidez. Such a shame. Now, the Canelo Cinnabons, they are so desperate because their leader looks horrible. Go to Canelo's page right now or go to my page at Boxingego1 on Instagram, at Boxingego on everything else. And if you go to my page, I posted a screenshot, a screen recording of Canelo's thread, like on his most recent post. It's full of duck emojis, people saying fight Benavidez, people saying I used to respect you and like you, but now I'm unfollowing because you don't want to fight David Benavidez. And this is what Canelo is faced with. In the words of Ice Cube, here's what they think about you. Here's what they think about you. Right? This is what the public says. And you'll always be judged by your peers and the public. So that's where it's at for Canelo. The world knows. His fans can try to mask it and make it look all right and make it look like he's not ducking Benavidez or, these other fights they're talking about for him, Munguia and Berlanga. I mean, you can try to make the public, you can try. The thing is, you can fool a few people. You're not going to fool the masses. Like, everybody's not going to drink the Kool-Aid. We know a good fight on paper when we see one, right? And if you are okay with Canelo versus Berlanga, then there's no reason to not admit that Benavidez is just the bigger and better fight, right? Berlanga still hasn't even fought one name, like a named person yet. And it's funny because Canelo's base, they just set themselves up for failure. Canelo says, all these guys are calling me out because I'm King Canelo, yada, yada, yada. He also says they need to fight each other to earn me. And his fans were mimicking and parroting this. Oh, yeah, they need to all fight each other. What has Benavidez been doing? Fighting the other people under Canelo's stature and looking impressive. Guys like mutual Canelo opponent, former champion Caleb Plant, who's a great fighter. He beats him. Then his very next fight, this is just last year, very next fight, he fights a tricky southpaw that Canelo avoided in Demetrius Andrade, a.k.a. Boo Boo. He retires him on the stool and pretty much beats him into submission, forces him to quit in that fight. And this is a dangerous Olympian and awkward southpaw that Canelo didn't fight. So Benavidez actually followed your own protocol that your fans copied and parroted, and he did what you said. And he's fighting the best available competition, right? The WBC said his mandatory was a big puncher and David Lemieux. He fought him, right? So he's taking care of all these people. Edgar Berlanga is not fighting Caleb Plant, former champion caliber people. He's not fighting Demetrius Andrade level people. And he's not even looking as impressive to me. He just fought some Irishman named Pedrog. I don't even know who that is. He just fought him. I still don't know who he is. So, the jig is up. Canelo can say whatever he wants. His fans can say whatever he want. The world sees it. It's a bad look. You guys can kick and scream. It's a bad look. And then now we find out that Al Haymon was still willing to bless Canelo, allow him to cherry pick Jermall Charlo, who's kind of wounded right now. No activity, almost doesn't look the same. Missing weight. Not a scintillating last performance against a smaller guy that Terrence Crawford stopped at a lighter division. So Crawford stopped. I was there at that fight. He stopped Jose Benavidez in the 12th and final round at welterweight. Benavidez then moves up later in his career to 54, loses to Danny Garcia, who also didn't stop Jose Benavidez. Then he moves up again after the Creed 3 movie, and he fights against Jermall Charlo, and Jermall Charlo didn't stop him. And at that point, Jose Benavidez is fighting, higher and higher. He started at like 140. So he's kind of not, he has the frame, but he's not always been fighting 54 and above. And Charlo never dropped him, never stopped him. That's why Canelo wants to fight him. Canelo's not willing to fight people off their best performances. I would actually even be shocked, even though I don't really want to see it like that. It's a better fight than Berlanga, but I would be shocked if Canelo, if DAZN if he goes to DAZN and DAZN can actually get Canelo Alvarez to face Munguia in May, I would be shocked. Because Munguia didn't look half bad with Freddie Roach. And he definitely, in my opinion, he looked more dangerous, at least, than Berlanga did, right? Given all things considered, John Ryder is someone at least who's veteran and his heart. I don't even know who Pedraga is. They kept saying he was a big puncher. Where? I didn't see that, So Canelo will probably be the vulture that he is, like Kanye album, Vultures. He's going to be a vulture and then go for the wounded animal or the person who didn't look sensational while saying, I want to fight the best. I don't care. I fight anybody and all this type of stuff. So it looks like he's trying to get the biggest bag. Funny thing is, a lot of Canelo's fans that happen to be racist, they attacked Floyd Mayweather and said he's a cherry picker. Then they physically watch Canelo Alvarez fight 154-pound Jermall Charlo, cherry pick, at 168 and give him credit for it. They don't call it a cherry pick. So Canelo, in their eyes, can do no wrong. He doesn't have to fight Benavidez. He can leave, and they rejoice if he leaves PBC. They're not real boxing fans. The people who act like this, they can't be. You don't want to see the Benavidez fan, the fight. To me, you're not really a fan because we know what the biggest and best fight is for Canelo, and it's clearly that. So why would you leave to a network that doesn't have Benavidez if you really want to fight Benavidez? Especially when they were going to honor the contract and they were okay with you fighting Munguia on their network. They would pay you the money, or you could fight against Jermall Charlo if you committed to your last and final PBC fight being David Benavidez. Finally, you have the desperate, and I do mean desperate, Canelo man fans, and they're alleging that PBC is broke, going out of business, and cannot afford to pay Canelo Alvarez. But I just showed you and let you listen to it, the article from Dan Rafael. It's not about they can't pay him. They don't look at Canelo Alvarez fighting against Jermall Charlo as a good fight and a profitable fight. So again, the anti-PBC crew and the anti-PBC, the haters, they say they hate PBC cherry pick fights, and now you're mad at PBC for not paying Canelo Alvarez for another cherry pick and or being willing to pay for another cherry pick if and only if he commits to fighting David Benavidez. People, if this is not ducking, then I don't know what is.